Hello everyone, this is your Hydra tutorial, number 3 in the series, the beginner's tutorial series. And in the last video we looked into color functions, continued with the color functions, and then we looked a little bit into this geometry function, which is to change the geometry or shape. Very basic ones we did, like repeat, so we have this like grid of images, and the scale, so now we can like stretch or just zoom in, out. Also we looked into this sequence or rhythm patterns, so you can start to like kind of make this VJ a little bit if you're interested in that kind of direction, so that the color changes with the time or the repeat pattern changes over time and so on. Also, just note that, of course, like if you have feedback, please write to me down below in the comments, or you can just write to me directly if you have my contact or Mastodon and so on. Much appreciated. And this tutorial, I'd like to take time because I know that the content is already like more than 1 hour, and this will be probably like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. What I noticed is that in the workshop I give, normally it's like 1 hour to 2 hours, and this is not a lot of time. So we kind of like try to like start slow so everyone has time to catch up. But then in the end, like we have to like bombard with this like functions and different. Also, like we do like a jam in the end. Maybe we can try to like look into this in the tutorial series as well, so that it's more like application, like I briefly mentioned about like embedding Hydra on your website, but also there are like examples that already use Hydra as a like applied way, like doing a jam over internet, so you can like code together with someone else or someone you don't know. This kind of thing, we can like look into it. But yeah, the thing was that in the workshop I have to like talk about all these things in a limited amount of time. So as opposed to that, or like if you have been to my workshop or someone else's Hydra workshop and feel like I want to like learn more, maybe this is a place, because I'm trying to like give more time and just understand function by function, so you can actually use it, not just like memorizing, okay, this scale, there's this color, this is colorama, but you can actually start to understand the meaning of these parameters, or like you just have like a tool to experiment with these functions. I try to give more and more examples so that you can try it out and craft something by yourself and something to create something on your own. And that's really the goal of this tutorial series. So it's not like a crash course that you watch it and in 2 hours you understand everything, but instead it's opposite, that I will take time and you will have time to like exercise by yourself, and that helps to understand it. So actually it's a faster way to learn in the end, to actually take time. So, and that's also like the way I understood, well, I don't understand the whole thing about Hydra, but my understanding improved by trying to kind of go through every single function and take time. Okay, this is that, so that it's not just like combining things and having spontaneous results. That's also interesting, and you should try that too. Like in the very beginning, we try to like change numbers and so on. That's also fun, but also like it's kind of interesting to like break down things. What is this color? What if we switch the order of color and colorama and so on? This is like very simple, but actually this helps understanding. So bear with me, and I hope you have fun learning today again. So I'm gonna like switch to small Naoto here, and so this is the whatever random sketch that showed up by Olivia, but I will erase it. So actually I pressed this trash can button, but what you could also do is, well, it's going to show something else, right, if you reload it. And what you could also do is, there's this function called hush, which is not very well known, but if you just hush, it will just erase everything, and it should clear, I don't know if it clears all the parameters, but basically it will make it blank. And I think it comes from the same name from tidal cycles to kind of stop the sound, all the tracks and so on. So this could be useful, so that you don't have to like press the trash can or bin if you're in the UK. So that's just like a little note. And now I'm going to do this again to have my webcam, and probably in the next video I will start to use other sources, so it's not always like, well, right now I'm going to just show myself. I will allow this camera and I see myself stretched. Now we know how to shrink so that it's not, I'll just guess it, make it like something like this. I'll shrink myself a little bit so that, well, it's shrunk too much maybe. But anyways, you get the idea that you can kind of fix the aspect ratio using scale function. If you haven't watched the second video, please watch that so that you can understand this better. And yeah, so I'm using my webcam. It's not this camera that's on the corner, but the webcam. But actually, you can also use other cameras. I haven't talked about this, but if you have like 3 different cameras, 4 different cameras connected to your computer through USB device, you can actually use that through initcam. Always, like just like the scale function, you can use it without any parameters, right? Or arguments or parameters. I forgot what's the proper name. This will like give the default parameter, which is like this. I remember by heart. Just like that, initcam actually takes the default parameter, which is 0. It's just like number, and it has to be like integer. So it can be 0 or 1 or 2, 3, and that can address different camera connected to your computer. It can be like OBS virtual camera. It can be webcam, like separate webcam that's connected besides your embedded webcam, or it can be like a USB video capture if you're fancy, you want to have like high res. Although it doesn't go like super high res on Hydra because of some limitations. But please try it out if you are interested in. You just have to do it with, again, Ctrl-Shift-Enter so that it will evaluate and it will connect to that camera. And I'm not going to talk this right now, but you can also use several cameras and use them together. But we haven't talked about how to layer things, so we'll probably come back to it when is the right time to talk about this topic. So for now, I'll just keep it like this, or like 0. It's the same thing. And if it's not the right camera, maybe you want to use 1 or 2. So that's like a little tip. And what we looked into is, like, for example, like repeat. If I did 2, 2, it's going to be like 2 by 2 repeated pattern. And again, you can combine it with like color functions. If I just want to have red color, interesting. Again, my sweater, it's a different one I'm wearing today. Although it's like pink-ish, some pink, I don't know. White, pink. Well, you see me in the corner, right? Like this. But if you have like this red like filter, like color filter, then oh no, it's kind of stopped. I don't know what happened now. Maybe because of this. Oh, interesting. Okay, so some weird things happen. Always like reload your page, and it might fix, it might not fix, but always reload the page if you think something is completely wrong. All right, so yeah, you see the color filter that now you cannot really distinguish these colors, which is kind of interesting. If you do this, then yeah, then you can distinguish. All right, so I'll just like take this out and go back to the tutorial. Oh yeah, there's another thing that I forgot to mention with the scale is that something you might notice, I mean, in this video, wait, is this? Yeah, no, you don't see it because it's not flipped in the video that I'm recording or you're watching. But if you're actually trying it on your laptop, which you should do while watching the video, you can pause it or you can just let the video run and try things, whatever you catch. whatever works for you. But you probably notice that it's on the wrong side. Like if you're on Zoom call or Jitsi, whatever, always like you see that if you raise your hand, you see that the same side of your hand will be raised in the camera, just like a mirror. But actually, that's already like mirroring it. It's really confusing. So in Hydra, it doesn't know about like mirroring and so on. So it looks flipped for you, but it's actually not flipped. You have to flip it to make it look mirrored. Whatever. What I want to say is that there's a trick. So as I said, like this is like the first parameter of scale applies to both directions, right? And then the second one, this is what we're interested in. So because what we want to do is to flip the image horizontally. And what we can do here is you can always try minus. There's nothing that blocks you to use, negative number here. And if you do this, that means that instead of like stretching on this direction, we're going to like flip it to the other direction. So let's see. So now, okay, the color is gone, but like I can try, like this is normal side, and then I just flip it. So in this video now, you see that like little Naoto in the corner and the big Hydra stretched Naoto, they have like different hand that's waving, different side. So it's confusing, but for you actually trying on your editor, this probably would make sense. So just try it out and see that what I mean by this. Now, so this is good. All right, so just for simplicity, I will keep it like this, but you can also like keep it like this so that from now on, you see that the image is actually on the right side that you expect in other video call applications and so on. This one, right? Okay, so the next one is, so finally we're going to the new one, which is Kaleid. The function name is Kaleid, but it's basically like a Kaleido or Kaleidoscope. As a childhood, probably you have something, but not, actually this is also interesting, like maybe like sidetracking a lot, but Kaleidoscope can be like different kinds that has like some kind of like beads and, like a filter so that you can see like little things, like shiny things in the view, but also like there's like a super simple one that is just a lens basically and some mirrors so that you can see like the world, but in a kind of confused way. And this is what we mean by Kaleid. So there's not going to be like, little things, which you can actually add later as we learn like layering and so on. But basically what it does, and I don't know, for example, like you can say Kaleido like with a 4. I pronounce it Kaleido because it sounds more natural, but the function is Kaleid without O. So just so you know. Okay, so it's a little bit like confusing, like which part of the image is like taken, but you can just try it and probably like in this upper part, not so much on this like lower part where I'm moving in the here is not really affecting, but it's more like a upper part that's like affecting, just so that it might be useful for you. You can also do like Kaleido with like 2. It's not like really like mirrored flipped image. It's kind of like rotated and flipped, like mirrored, which is a little bit funny, but as we learn like different functions, maybe you can like rotate it later so that you can correct it as you want, to have the kind of visual that you want. But basically this is what Kaleido function gives you. Also you can do like 1, which I don't know what it means, but it's kind of like similar to like a repeat, but also like flipped, kind of weird thing. What happens if we do like 0? Okay, this doesn't make sense, but 0.1, still you can do it. And what's interesting with Kaleido is, okay, like 3 is also kind of cool. I actually like this 3 because they always like make this kind of like triangle pattern. So I'm kind of fan of Kaleido with 3. And in Kaleido, you don't have second, third, fourth parameter. Although you can just add something, it doesn't it's going to be ignored. It's not going to be an error. Like in other programming languages, JavaScript is kind of loose, so this works. But basically, it's just one number. What's super interesting with Kaleido is something like if you give like a big number, I used 9 because then it's like you can save one character if compared to like this, like use it almost the same. And this makes kind of circle. And this may be interesting. Right now with this, I mean, I would say this is interesting that you can like whatever, oh, actually, yeah, that's why like I'm saying like depending on what you wear, you can kind of craft the image already, right? And this is already super interesting to me, to you, I don't know. You might want to like, move some kind of, colored paper or something. You don't have to like, wear something, but you can move some objects and so on. But what I want to say with this like big number with Kaleido, I would say like 99 is, 99 is, yeah, almost okay, or 999 or whatever. Then you can start to see that you don't see this kind of like waviness. Like this still you can see like waviness, which also you might won't be, like this might be the effect you want, like visual effect. But if you want like kind of seamless circle pattern, then this like 999, for example, can be like, or like more bigger number. It's also okay. So this is one way to make a circle in Hydra. And again, okay, this is not a circle, this is like oval. I know you can stretch it back with scale function. Now we know it. I don't know, 0.7 or something. And sometimes what I do is like, you don't have to put this last number because the default parameter anyways for scale is 1. So actually what I often do is something like this. And you might see me doing this in the next, from now on, I will just like let me do this without explaining. So if you're confused, like why Naut is using like scale with like 2 parameters instead of 3, then it means that I'm just like omitting this part. So yeah, actually, this is kind of like a circle. Okay, 0.5. Yeah, this is like a circle. And if you really want to make this like a perfect quote unquote circle, there is a way to use JavaScript functions. I think it's the inner width. I have to divide inner height divided by inner width. This is like a perfect. So basically, you can have some kind of math syntax. I mean, if you don't know it, you don't have to follow it. But if you're curious, and if you already know a little bit of JavaScript coding, or if you're an expert or whatever, you can do this. The reason why I put this like this cryptic thing is that this makes like an arrow function or anonymous function or lambda function. I forgot the proper terminology in JavaScript, but basically this becomes like a function, and it's going to be like evaluated every frame. So the benefit of this is that if you change the aspect ratio of, oh no, because I didn't evaluate it. Yeah, aspect ratio of the window on the fly. So now I'm doing this here. It stays circle. But if you do this without this cryptic function thingy, then it works the time like when you evaluate it, but it's not going to be updated. This whole inner height, inner width doesn't get updated. So if you stretch it, then you don't see that it's, well, if you deform the window, it's not going to be updated on the fly. But again, if you just evaluate it again, then it's fine. So they're like little things that probably like I will come back to this anonymous function or arrow function, but it's a little bit like more like a programming kind of thing. So I don't want to like introduce it too early. But if you're curious, if you know already how to code JavaScript, then this is kind of interesting thing that you can also use like time variable to make some animation with it. But I'll just keep it like this for now. For example, okay, it was actually almost 0.5. So now we have a circle, and I can like change the color with my sweater. All right. So what's the next one? Is, okay, the scroll family, I would say, and rotate. So I'll just like go through them like together. Basically, I'll just go back to stretch to me again, stretched flip to me again, just for simplicity. But again, you can combine things. But sometimes like you have to like be careful with the order of the combination that might change things. Let's go through. So the basic one, let's say like scroll X, and scroll X has to be capital. It's called camel case, I think. It's the same with this init cam, actually. I didn't say it, but you might have been, you know, confused. Like, this is not, if you put like a small case C, then it gives an error because it's not a function. And in programming, it's quite picky that most of the programming languages, including JavaScript, you have to be, well, it's case sensitive, so you have to be careful like which case you're using. So init small c cam, init big C, how to say it, capital C cam. There are different symbols, different functions, and in Hydra mostly we use this camel case. So because init and cam, they're like separate words in our language. It's not a programming thing. It's just like a, you know, the way we decided, or like in this case, Olivia decided how to name things, because you can also like name it in a different way. This if Olivia said like, okay, init cam is lowercase is the way we go, then it could have been this way, but it just happened to be this way that Olivia decided. But it's also like a kind of popular technique, or how to say, convention. So we stick to this. And it's the same thing with scroll X. So in this case, X is just like one character, but we treat it as a word. So it's not scroll X lowercase, but it's scroll X uppercase. And like always, as always, just give it without, just go without any parameter. And what happens is like, oh, stopping is not part of it, but okay, so it's kind of like actually a Kaleido that I would expected, but it's not mirrored. See, I can independently move my arms. So it's not mirror. So what happened is that the whole image is like kind of shifted. Well, I'm doing it manually, but it kind of loops, like it wraps around. So scroll X0 is like nothing, basically. If you take this out, it's the same thing. Technically not the same thing, but here it looks the same. That's more like a Hydra book thing that I would write in Hydra book. You might probably saw it, but yeah, I'm just like super picky sometimes. But in this case, let's say it's the same thing. And scroll X, so scroll X0 doesn't do anything basically. And if you give a little bit of like parameter, like 0.1, then you can see that it's shifted. So it's literally, well, which way? I don't know, scrolling in the X direction, the horizontal direction. And if you increment this, you can see that, okay, it's kind of like moving. And that's why like the default parameter is 0.5. See, it's the same. So it's the default parameter is 0.5. So it's kind of like shifted until like it hits like this kind of middle point. And if you go more, it will just like go, like, as I said, it's going to wrap around. And if you give 1, it kind of like goes back into place, because like there is this like ghost now who is like on my side and it's coming here. Anyways, like whatever way you want to picture it, it's kind of like wraps around. All right, so that's scroll X, simple. It has a second parameter, which is super useful because, so the default parameter is 0 for the second one. It doesn't do anything. And but for this one, don't give like a big number yet. Also, like I didn't give like epilepsy warning. Like if you are actually photosensitive, you have to be careful. There are different ways to prevent like flashing images, but while you learn, there might, like accidentally happen that there will be like flashing images. So to be safe, I think it's good to write to me, like, what are the ways to do it, because I can't really like say all the things right now. One of the things you can do is, we looked into like this BPM thingy. Changing the BPM doesn't really help because it's only for this like sequential, rhythmic thing. But there is, I think it's called FPS, and normally it's like 60. Oh, sorry, this is a spoiler. I should have done it this way. Okay. Yeah, so now you see, like scroll X with the second parameter, it starts to move. Okay, there was like a highlight of this video and I kind of spoiled it. So if you give like FPS stands for frames per second. So on a normal display, what you have, the monitor, probably it's like around 60. It might be 30. But then if you give like smaller number, let's say like 6, and then you see like it's not my recording that is the kind of starting to like it be choppy, but it's actually the video is becoming, well, the rendering is becoming choppy. And if you can like, even like say like 1, then it will like only update the video once per second. So it becomes like kind of this kind of stop motion kind of, well, stop motion can be smooth, but you get the idea that it becomes like really choppy. This might be one way of like preventing flashing images, because there is no way that it will start to flash in a faster pace. But if you want to be on the safe side, just reach out to me or someone and find a solution. You might not want to explore Hydra further, but there should be ways to do it. But also like we want to be, like I don't want to cause any harm to anyone, like literally. So that's just like a parenthesis, but it would be nice to note that actually. But in this video, I will stick to 60 frames per second. I will even delete it because I'm not gonna change it. What else? Yeah, also like if you're performing with Hydra and changing FPS could be interesting if you want to give like this kind of effect, like, yeah. All right, so that's that. And so I gave a spoiler. Scroll X with this will start to scroll in time, which is super interesting because it's movement, and we haven't really seen like movement besides this like sequencer, like rhythmic pattern. I was moving here all the time, so you can see the image is also always moving, but it's all these like functions are quite static. But in this case, scroll X, it gives like really like dynamic like visual effect as a function. So scroll X, we have this, we saw it. Also, like, don't forget minus will, well, actually I did it at the very right time, so it kind of like made a smooth transition, but normally like if you do this, then it will be like choppy. Not this like smooth transition is not guaranteed, that's what I want to say. Like it was just like happened to be there, but anyway, so minus will give like to the other direction the movement. So as you can imagine, now we looked at scroll X, now we know what it is. Of course there's scroll Y, which is going in the horizontal direction. Now we get the idea. It's the same thing, that we have 0.5 as a default parameter. So if you give like 0.2, there's a little bit of shift, and 0.8, 0.9, it will go back to, again, it will like wrap around. So it's not, instead of like ghost nows on the side, they are on the top or bottom, underneath me. I don't know, whatever, however you want to imagine. And you can do this to make this kind of scrolling effect with a scroll Y function as well. So simple. In this case, actually, like sometimes it's, I mean, for me, it was also like very confusing at first, but if you're like doing this movement with the second parameter, the first parameter doesn't really matter because it kind of like offsets and then start moving. So you can see like if I change it, it does change the movement, but it doesn't really contribute to like the velocity or the speed of scroll per se. Like even if I do like 100,000, it will stay at this speed. In fact, 1,000, because it's integer, it will just wrap around, so it doesn't do anything. But anyways, so this doesn't really matter. That's what I would say. Okay. And of course, like if you want to make it slower, you can do like 0.01. Same with scroll X, right? This makes like a really subtle effect, but it is actually slowly moving. And as I said about epilepsy warning, I'm not going to do like faster in this video, but if you want to try it, just try it. What's the limit? Can you give 1? Is it too fast? 10? Is it way too fast? 1,000? What happens? It's up to you. So, and the last one in this family is rotate. Yeah, I think I will finish geometry with this and then also like wrap up today's tutorial with rotate. But basically what rotate does is, okay, let's just keep it, go back to just the stretched me. And what happens with rotate? It rotates. And I think the default parameter is like 1 or something. No, 2, 3. I don't know actually. But you get the idea. It rotates. Something to note about rotate function is that it takes radian. And if you haven't studied like trigonometry, like sine, cosine and stuff, it may be very confusing. But basically, instead of like using from 0 to 360 degrees, that's how normally we think radian goes from 0 to 2 pi, 2 times pi, which is 2 times 3.14 or something. So let's just give pi like pseudo pi. Let's say 3.14 is pi, or you can say like 3 is pi. It's fine. It kind of like, so now I'm like flipped in a way that, well, it's not flipped. We have to be precise with the terminology, because when we say flipped, I'll go back to this scale example. So for example, like we said, this is flipped, right? Like this mirrored or flipped in the X direction, but you can also do it like upside down kind of flip. So now we're like flipping the image, but with the rotate, let's say like 3.14. So it's almost like pi, but it's not exactly. So you can actually see a little bit of like line, like a little bit of kind of glitch at the bottom. Anyways, so what I want to say is this is different from what it was. Okay, you can actually, yeah, compare it. So see, like it's, if you do scale with -1, it kind of like flips vertically. If you use like, you know, for example, like Photoshop, you probably all know what I mean. Like it's rotating it 180 degrees versus flipping the image is different. So if you, it's hard to explain. It's probably easier for you to try it out. Okay, then you get the idea, like it's subtle difference. But there are also like, I just want to say like there are different ways to manipulate image. It sometimes looks similar, but sometimes not exactly the same. And just want to highlight that. And with rotate, you can also, I don't know what's like halfway to pi, but you can just like divide it by 2. You can have this kind of like numeric, you know, expressions. And this gives 90 degrees rotated. And if you do like ×3, then it's 270 degrees rotated. And if you do this, you kind of like go back all the way to the original position. So it's rotated, but like back to where we were. If you're super picky and you say like, okay, now the 3.14 is not pi. This is not pi. This is almost pi. There is this expression math with a, and it's different from how Olivia named things because math pi comes from JavaScript itself, math library or something. Like that's part of JavaScript on the browser. The way it's named is like math starting with capital M, and pi is both capital. And it's a little bit funny, you know, like math.pi. It's not math, it's not pi, but it's math.pi. But it's actually, this dot is same as like how we're using already these dots. So it's kind of like the way we're like patching, you know, like source into rotate into output. But in a way, like this is like saying like, okay, we're taking this math box and we're like pulling out pi from the box of math, because we have a lot of like other parameters or well, variables or functions in math. For example, sine and cosine, we can use it too. Maybe we will look into this later in the series. But basically math.pi is just a number that represents pi, almost pi, again, because we can't, like pi, we cannot have the exact pi on the computer. But let's say this is pi in our world, in our practical world. Okay, this is pi, and then times 2, we can do this expression. So if you evaluate this, and if you are actually like super picky, you notice that there was like this little line here when I said 3.14. There's this little line here. I don't know if you can see it in the video, or you can exaggerate it. You know, like if it's 3.1, then you see that it's not exactly like rotated 360 degrees. And even if it's 3.14, it's not exactly there, but you can use math.pi, and these little like glitches, lines are gone, because we're using perfect pi in the ideal world. Anyways, that's a lot for rotate function, but since we have time, and then you can do the same thing as, you know, 3.14, math.pi is the same thing. You can have 90 degrees rotated, or even like, you know, 60 degrees rotated, or 30 degrees rotated. You can do math. But in the case of like live coding, probably like actually you would like end up like, okay, just give 0.1 and see what happens. 0.4, okay. Unless like you really want to like rotate it at like 180 degrees, maybe you won't use pi, but sometimes you just want to give some kind of like, you know, tilt, and then just try different parameters, or like minus 0.4 or whatever that works for you. So after all this explanation in math, I'm like, okay, just give random number. And I'm saying this as a family with this scroll X and Y, because as you might expect, there's a second parameter which will make the animation or the movement. So I'm not gonna again make it too fast, but the same idea that if you give like smaller number, it's gonna be slower, bigger number, faster rotation, negative number, other way around. I'll just make it a little bit faster. So again, that's a lot of fun, and there are different combinations coming up. I'll try to wrap up, but for example, like what you can do is this, you can make this movement within, well, sequence within this movement parameter. What happens is that it's going to like rotate for a bit, and then it stops, because we're like kind of switching between rotating mode and static mode. And also I'll just like make it back to this, and then of course you can like combine it with like scroll X with the movement. So rotate has the movement, and then scroll X has the movement as well. Now it's becoming a little bit more like elaborate, something like more that you don't like, if you look at it, you don't understand immediately what's happening, although this is still simple. And again, I emphasize, like the order matters sometimes, and this is the case that drastically change. So if I put scroll X, rotate, instead of rotate, scroll X, then what's going to happen is that now it's not moving in the horizontal direction, because making the horizontal direction, then rotating, so it's like moving somewhere else. And then of course you can chain it with like scroll Y, and of course you can add Kaleido, colors, and then colors can have the sequence, Kaleido can have a sequence as well, and so on and so on and so on. But always like, try to like come back to, it's fun to like add more and more things. Try it, please. That's like your assignment, homework, if you want to say it that way. I'm not going to like go crazy about this, but also like if you feel lost, always like go back to like a simple example. So because it's easy to add things, but then it just like goes like completely like not understandable, and you don't even know if you like it or not. Then always just come back to like simple example, so that you know that, oh yeah, like this is, I would say, simple, or like even like just rotate. Okay, it rotates. We understand it, and then we can like start like build up things. Do you want to add colorama, or do you want to add thresh, or do you want to add scroll X, sequence within whatever parameter? Go for it. But then always like come back to the simple example. That's something like advice I give you, so that you have like, you start to kind of like build up the pattern. Like, okay, I come back to this. I always start with like thresh, for example, or I always like add this like color thing, color function, and then I add, I don't know, Kaleido, or like experiment with repeat. But to have like some kind of like convention, or it doesn't have to be, but don't like add more and more and more and more until you like fill the screen with the code. That's just an advice, but maybe you have different idea. If you find like some, interesting ways of like coding, or if you just like find like a nice sketch that you want to show to people, share it, please do it on the Discord, Facebook group, comment down below, write to me, whatever. I really appreciate it, especially like if you got something from the video, like that's great, that's amazing. That's why I'm filming these videos. So please, please, please share what you make. Also, if you mention that you got some ideas from this video, that will be so much, like I appreciate it so much, although you don't have to do it because it's open, and I don't really claim anything that I'm like the code, like the content itself, it's my content, but the code I produce and show it to you, like you don't have to credit me for that, because it's very simple and it's like meant to be like public domain, the code itself, not this video. So please, please, please share what you do, what you found, like tricks you found, workflow you like, anything that's related to the video, or feedback to me, is it too fast, is it too slow, what's the function you want to learn, what's the application you want to do with Hydra, or do you want to like make websites, or do you want to make VJing, making images for printing. Those things all I do, so I can talk about it. So please, please, please let me know. I want to make this interactive as possible, and if you like the content, well, thank you for watching, first of all. And if you like the content, please give me a like and share it with others, subscribe to my channel. I highly appreciate it. That's my motivation to continue this series. So yeah, thank you again, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.